Hi, everybody. Welcome to that new episode of DTX Excellence. In this episode, we're going to talk about the definition of DTX and tell you more about what is a DTX and what it's not. I'm Aline.
And I'm Anna.
I've been working in the digital health space for the past 10 years and I'm passionate about DTX.
I worked for a big pharma company looking at DTX from their perspective for 5 years and currently looking at digital assets, which is still super connected. So let's take a look at digital therapeutics and the definition. You might have already heard or seen about the Digital Therapeutics Alliance, which has published a widely acknowledged and agreed upon definition. So according to them, the digital therapeutics deliver medical interventions directly to patients using evidence-based and clinically evaluated software. This is an important component, so it's software-based, and they treat, manage, or prevent a broad spectrum of diseases or disorders. What's really important here is to look into the intervention piece. So they need to deliver an intervention and that it needs to be evidence-based and clinically proven. And digital therapeutics can do that by standing on their own, where it's a software-only therapy, so being independent, or they can work in conjunction with medications or devices, so existing therapies essentially, to optimize these existent therapies. In this instance, it's still important to have this clinical evidence to show the optimization of the patient care and the health outcomes through using a digital therapeutic on top of the existing therapy. But let's take a closer look at this. So we have these three types. We have standalone digital therapeutics, which means they're software-only novel therapy that prevents, manages, or treats, as we mentioned just before, purely through their quality software program. So they trigger an intervention by itself. But there's also digital therapeutics in conjunction. So there's drug plus or device plus. A drug plus is a companion digital therapeutic to existing, sometimes molecular or other therapies. In this case, it's about optimizing this medication and the therapy. Or they come with a device plus, whether that is in conjunction with a medical device class 1, 2, or 3. Again, the digital therapeutic here is focused on optimizing the care of the patient that they're getting through this medical device. So now let's look at some examples. So you have here standalone drug plus and device plus. If we look at a standalone here, you have Kaya Health as an example. They treat through their software only app-based solution musculoskeletal therapy. In that sense, what they help with is distribute, or is basically they take over existing therapies to treat this disease or disorder essentially for people. And instead of having to go to physical therapies or being adjusted or having actual sensors on top to adjust and help people do the right movements, what they do is they give a customized exercise plan and they, by using their app to film you, give you real-time feedback on the movements and therefore take over the therapy as it stood otherwise. And therefore, they're standalone therapy. Then you have drug plus. Here's an example. We have Reset O, which is from Pear Therapeutics. What it does is it's a companion additional digital therapeutic. It's a 12-week program that you get prescribed on top of the medication you usually get for the opioid use disorder. And what they've been able to show is that by using this digital therapeutic on top of the normal medication plan and the treatment plan, that they've really improved the health outcomes and patient care of opioid use disorder patients. The last example here is Device Plus. We want to look here at AccuCheck, which is a glucose monitor for diabetes patients. And also here we have a companion DTX solution that helps monitor diabetes patients and have additional feedback loops, so to say, based on that medical device that they use. And they've also been able to show a much better outcome for patients and through that additional feedback loop. So you can really see there's different components to a standalone versus drug plus versus device plus, but they all come with an intervention and the respective outcome for patients. So in summary, many ask a lot, what is digital therapeutic and how does it fit within the digital health realm and how is it different from other health apps? So you see a lot of digital wellness, diagnostic tools. If we look at that, like for example, digital wellness or support tools, They really capture, store, and transmit health data, but it's static. It doesn't really give any intervention treatments. It doesn't give a feedback loop necessarily, or make any intervene or measurement analysis, so to say. It just captures the data as is. So this could be lifestyle data, fitness trackers, telehealth platforms, etc. What they don't really need, since they're just static data gatherers and transmitters, they don't really need clinical evidence or real world outcomes. The diagnostic monitoring tool goes a step further. So they measure, but also intervene possibly. So that's digital diagnostic tools, biomarkers, or even remote patient monitoring, just as examples. Here, we do look for clinical evidence to show the efficacy, but we're not necessarily focusing on real world outcomes as well. On the right-hand realm of this is our digital therapeutic. And as we've mentioned before, it's really about delivering this therapeutic intervention to patients that has an outcome. And therefore, in this instance, we really look for not just the clinical evidence, but also digital therapeutics are very focused on showing real-world outcomes for patients. So in summary, what we've learned, to be a digital therapeutic, you need to meet at least a few conditions. So you need to have a proven therapeutic value of said intervention that the tool has. These are usually FDA or CE regulated and clinically validated through respective clinical trials. And in that way, they can demonstrate this meaningful value, not just through clinical trials, but also in the real world. What can be built on top of it, and is probably moving more and more, and we're going to go through them in a bit in our additional sessions, but essentially build on pieces could be a collection of data and instant feedback loop that goes either to patients or HCPs, etc. It could possibly be covered by payers or insurers, being reimbursed in that sense, could be connected to clinical workflow, or actually even be prescribed. The Reset O example from earlier from Pear Therapeutics is actually a prescription one. So that means it's a prescribed digital therapeutic that healthcare professionals recommend or prescribe through to their patients. Those are build-on additions to the digital therapeutic.
So now we're going to have a closer look at the digital therapeutic areas where DTX are present. So as you can see, there's really a wide variety of therapeutics areas, and we've seen more and more popping up those past month and past years. So now we're going to see concrete example of DTX, so you have a better understanding of what they do and how they do it. So the first one of my favorite, is Sleepio, and it's targeting insomnia. So Big Health, the company behind Sleepio, is one of the pioneer in digital therapeutics. So they have two solutions. One is Daylight, so focus on anxiety, and this one, Sleepio, focus on insomnia. So the small guy that you see here in the picture is called the Prof. And if you have insomnia, you just you open your app, you interact with the Prof, and he will ask you a series of questions like personalized to you to understand why you're having insomnia and giving you some tips to send you back to sleep. So that's where you see as well the importance of gamification in those solutions. Another example, another important area is cardiometabolic or cardiovascular. And we know that cardiovascular is the number one reason of death right now in the world. So that's why I think this specific area is very important. And to have solutions that you can use at home is even more important. So in that case, Better Therapeutics, so targeting cardiometabolic, cardiovascular solution, it's really targeting the cause of the disease, not just the effects, and that's very important. And like many other DTX, they are using cognitive behavioral therapy to target the disease. And in the case of Better Therapeutics, targeting specifically eating and lifestyle behaviors. So the way CBT works is you've got normally like three different components, and they repeat themselves in the different DTX. So you have one part on education. So for you to understand better, like the disease condition, how it works, why it appears, why it works like that. Exercise component, so targeting different parts of the body based on the condition in the app. And finally, a meditation session, really to help you, to help the patient to relax and feel better. So in that case, for instance, of Better Therapeutics, this app is really used under the supervision of a healthcare professionals. And in their case, they include AI components that help identify the right treatment for the patient. Another example that has been rising a lot those past months and past years because of the pandemic, especially, is mental health. So I think, yeah, the pandemic really showed that mental health was very important. Many of us got affected by mental health, and the importance of being able to manage our mental health on our own from the comfort of the home, right? So that's an example, Happify. So again, they are using cognitive behavioral therapy, and it can really help you to manage and to control, monitor your own mental health from the comfort of your home and also from the supervision of a healthcare professional. Another example, which is also growing a lot, is oncology. So example of solution around oncology could be diary that can accompany the patient and the families, like what they can include the symptoms they're experiencing, the treatment, do follow-ups. And this is another example. So Move Care is one of the only companies or the only DTX company in France who is being reimbursed by the public system. And this has been developed for people who have suffered lung cancer. So what you do with the app, so every week you enter your symptoms in the app. There's an algorithm that would analyze the answers that you provided. And if there's a slight issue with your result, it will let the healthcare professional know, meaning that the healthcare professional is advised at the very beginning and they can take action right at the beginning of the disease or the relapse. And the results have been very, very good around that solution. So I think it's very important. Then another one would be stress. And again, many of us have experienced increased stress those past years due to the pandemic, due to COVID. A lot of solutions have been using augmented reality or virtual reality, like we can see here in the picture. And this one, VR, I think it's a very special one. So it helps the patient relax in the case of the hospital, but it also helps to replace an anesthetic product. So when a patient is having an operation, they let him use the VR glasses. And the result is that the patient will actually, so this is based on clinical trials that they did, the results are showing that the patients are experiencing less pain after the operation, and they actually recover faster and spend less days in the hospital. And I think also very interesting use of VR in that case around stress. It has been used more and more for the healthcare professionals, and we know that they have been suffering a lot, and they're still suffering because of COVID. And now some companies are actually doing some short programs for the healthcare professionals so they can use the glasses before going to an operation, for instance, doing a 5-10 minute session. And that's also really proving that the healthcare professionals then go to that operation much more relaxed and then more success. And the last example, and I think this is very interesting because one of the benefits of DTX is that they can actually target diseases that are not well addressed by the healthcare system or not addressed at all, bringing them like sort of a solution, like in the case of IBS, for instance. And here, this example that you see here, Ashona, has been developed for the patient suffering the Hashimoto disease. So what those solutions are doing, they are not necessarily bringing a cure to the disease, but they're really helping to alleviate the symptoms. And this is a big thing for the patients, because imagine like some patients have been suffering from that disease for years and years, really like suffering bad symptoms, and nothing was able to help them. But now really it's proven that some DTX are really helping them and releasing those symptoms. So this is great news. And here, so you can see concrete example of outcomes from those different DTX, right? So if you look at a solution focused on diabetes, for instance, you can see that the use of a DTX has decreased the A1C by 1 point, which is a lot in the case of diabetes. Case of depression, for instance, reducing depression by 55%. So those numbers are really good, and this is very interesting to see that DTX is really working, right? And it is having positive outcomes on the patients. So that's the end of the episode 1 around definition of DTX. So thank you for following us. So here you have our contact information if you want to get more information. And stay tuned for a new episode of DTX Excellence. See you soon.